we were on our way to North Carolina. My son discovered those 4 words. Are we there yet? I didn't think that was actually a thing. You hear about it, but we got about 2 hours away or something like that. We got pretty close, and then he said it. And then he kept saying it. Are we to the beach yet? Are we there yet? And it didn't matter that I said, hey, we got another couple hours, but he kept asking, are we there yet? So that was a fun thing to discover with him and realize that is a real thing. Here's what I want to say to you today to get us started, that sometimes, especially in times like this, it is very easy for us to be focused on what is happening out there in a way that makes us lose sight of what is right here and here. In our world and our time, it's so easy to be looking out there and lose sight of what's happening right in front of us. And so today, I want to give you a reminder, and I want to give us one thing to talk about in our time together. First of all, a reminder, which I hope is good news to you, because I think it's something, when we don't know this, I think it's what gets us focused out there, fixing everything, trying to save everything. Jesus is the one who saves. Will you receive that today? His name, Jesus, means he saves. He is the one who heals. He is the one who forgives. He is the one who reconciles all things to God and is making all things new. He is the one who has started the kingdom of heaven coming to earth, and he's the one who will finish it. Yes, if you work in healthcare or you work in a certain field, you may rescue someone. You may save their lives, so to speak. Praise God for that. When we're talking about who has the power to save, and I mean really save, to bust through everything we think that keeps us from God, he's the one. Not you, not me. So receive that today. Secondly, here's the one thing that I would love to talk with you about today. Jesus, I want to show you, has a focus that he wants to teach us. He invites us to believe in him. He invites us to follow him so that we will have the kind of focus that he has, so we will make the difference he calls us to make. I want to show you that. Jesus has a way of focusing on the big picture, on his big mission to save the world. He says in John, I didn't come to condemn the world, I came to save it. He has a way of focusing on the big picture that enlarges the present moment, that makes the things happening right here in front of him bigger, not smaller. But first, I wanted to talk to you I want to ask you, and I'll try to see the comments. My screen is still super dull. What causes you to lose focus? What causes you to miss out on the things happening right in front of you and within you? How do you struggle with that? And I'll wait for just a minute. Anxiety is what one person says. stress and anxiety. Being overwhelmed. Future responsibilities. Logistics for family. Sorry, I'm like coming in really close to see these because I can't see my screen too well. Yeah, keep going. These are good examples. Looking too far past what is in my control. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm sure you guys did not want such a close-up on my face today. Social media, yeah, I saw that one. Opposing beliefs of others. Careers. Yeah, I'd wager that in some ways we can underestimate our workplace and we can overestimate it as well. Yeah, careers. That's a tough one for many people. Yeah. Planning for what is next or better and not living and being present in the actual moment. Nicole, we will be talking about that today. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, that's really good stuff. Like, think about this right now. I don't mean to... I've been asking myself a question recently, so now you're going to be getting the fruit of it. Lack of focus, Doug says. I've been asking myself recently, Ross, what would you be doing if you weren't afraid? I'm asking myself that constantly right now. So I'm going to say something to you that I would say to you if I weren't afraid to hurt your feelings. Because I think you can take it. I think you know I care. Can you sit still for 45 minutes and just do this? Or do you have to multitask? Is what is happening the rest of your day so important that you can't just be here? I do it all the time. I think it's so critical for me to be doing multiple things at once. And it's not. I'm acting out of my anxiety or fear. And so I can't just be present. Where else should you be right now but like sitting with friends? I know it may not be ideal. Some of us may not like the online format. I don't love it. I'd much rather be with you in person, but man, if I've learned anything in faith, Jesus is standing at the door waiting. If we show up, he will open it every day. Right now, something you can control is you can be right here, right now, with God. You may keep sharing. I will try to track the comments as best I can. I'll share two things I struggle with, and maybe you can relate to that. Number one, it's great to have big goals, to have a purpose that you have in mind for your life. It is great to live, as Rick Warren wrote a long time ago, which became very popular, the purpose-driven life. It is great to live a purpose-driven life. But sometimes I am so committed to my big purpose, this big vision I have for my life, and that vision gets a little polluted, or maybe a lot, with desires that come out of my insecurity. My ego gets to work on that dream. I imagine this day when I arrive at a destination, when I really have made it, I've achieved, and I'm on this pedestal with trophies and people are singing, he's a jolly good fellow, you might be saying, gosh, Ross is insecure. You best believe it. And so sometimes I'm so focused on that destination that I'm not right here, right now, with the people and the community I have right here. And all the good things in it. The other thing is this. We live in the era of, alert, big word coming, the era of globalization. I got on the BBC NewsHour website just to do an experiment. I love listening to BBC NewsHour on NPR when that person comes on with that wonderful English accent and tells me in 2 minutes or less everything that seems to be happening in the world. I got on BBC NewsHour and I just took a screenshot of it. In an instant, there were 12 different snapshots of things happening in 12 very different places in the world. It's an incredible thing that we have at our fingertips now, and yet it can very powerfully draw our attention out there in all these places such that we lose sight of what's happening right here, right now. Don't get me wrong, today part of what I'm talking about is having a global focus. Jesus did. He certainly did. But if we are focusing on everything out there, all the global situations in the world, and we're missing out on stuff happening right here in front of us, and or we're not actually doing anything particular or specific about anything out there, we may need to readjust. Looks like we have a comment here. Yeah, Doug talks about multitasking. It's taught as like a great skill to have, but is it? There's some research out there really quick about how we're never actually multitasking when we think we're multitasking. We're just changing our focus rapidly. And we're training our brain sometimes to not be able to focus on one thing with longevity. Some of the stuff I'm talking about requires retraining our brains. Definitely. I know I have to do that. There's a direct correlation between my screen time and my attention span downturn. Right? If you struggle with this stuff, you feel like you're out of balance, like you can't achieve focus, and you're not like living up to the art of making a difference as Jesus calls you and empowers you to do, you're not alone. The disciples struggled with it mightily. Big time. We've said before how in Luke, a couple of times, they start arguing about who amongst them is the greatest. They're doing the thing I do. They have this destination in mind where they're the hero of the story. And because they're going to be the hero in the story, oh man, a good friend of mine, I don't think he'd care, Josh Bowman, if you're out there, he said a great line to me. He's like, sometimes we're so focused that we're making people around us supporting characters in our journey rather than the other way around. Man, the disciples were ready, man, to make even Jesus a supporting character in their story of being the hero. They argue about who's greatest. They're not focused on the things happening right in front of them, the people right in front of them, the potential right in front of them, in them. They're actually killing their own potential with this egotistical aim. They struggled with shame. How is that like focusing on the things out there and losing sight on the things like right here, right now? Shame is when we're focused on the things out there in the past. We don't just feel bad about things that we've done. We are now taking the things we've done and making them part of who we are. We're so focused on the things out there that we don't believe that we are loved, worthy, and forgiven and capable right here, right now. Peter was always vacillating between shame and ego. Finally, in Acts chapter 1, verse 6, they've got their vision of how Jesus is going to be their dream fulfilled. Is now the time, Jesus, you're going to restore the kingdom to Israel? They're focused on some global thing out in the distance. And they've missed a lot of things Jesus had said to them in real time right here. They're missing on how Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is near. I'm not sure exactly what that means all the time. But I know what the word near means, I think. It means it's up close. It's right now. There's something happening right here, right now. And if we're focused out there all the time, we're going to miss so much. So here's what I want to show you. I want to read you one verse so that we can learn from the focus of the Savior of the world. We can learn focus from the one who saves. We're not the saviors. He is. He's the one who forgives. He's the one who heals. He's the one who justifies. He's the one who reconciles all things and all people to God. He is the one making all things new. He is the one who started the kingdom of heaven coming to earth, and he's the one who will finish it. And by God, he invites us to play a part in that. With him and with other people. Listen to this. It's so cool. This is in Luke, the Gospel of Luke, chapter 9. Gospel of Luke, there are 4 accounts of Jesus' life. Luke is one of them. It says this in chapter 9, verse 51. If you have a physical Bible, that means there'll be a big number. That's the chapter 9. And then some little numbers, 51. That's the verse. Jesus is close to the region he's from, near Galilee, near the Sea of Galilee in modern-day Israel. And it says this, as the time approached when Jesus was to be taken up into heaven, he determined to go to Jerusalem. There it is. You're like, wait a minute, I missed it. Other translations says it's this figure of speech from his time. He set his face on Jerusalem. He was determined to get to Jerusalem. He's got a big picture in mind. He's got another part of the world in mind. He knows he's got to get there, and he's not going to miss out on his destination. He knows he's got some relationships to deal with there. He knows he's got some sins to deal with there. He knows he will die there. He will be raised there. He is focused on this big picture vision, his saving mission, and yet, watch this, listen. Here's what you can't know just from that verse. The next 10 chapters in Luke, it's the biggest section in that account of Jesus' life. The next 10 chapters after that one verse are all about what? His journey to Jerusalem. One scholar says there's so little mention of and reference to Jerusalem after that for the next 10 chapters that you almost forget that he's going to Jerusalem. Why am I saying that? Jesus had a way of focusing on this big picture thing, focusing on another part of the world that actually enlarged the present moment and the people in it. He was happy to let himself be stopped in his path on his way to the big mission. So many stories that we know that are popular about Jesus are in that journey. The story of the Good Samaritan, the parable of the prodigal son, the story of Zacchaeus, Those are all in the journey on the way to Jerusalem, which says, as the cliche goes, the journey is as important as the destination. Or if I could rephrase it, the present moment, the right here, right now, with these people next to you, is just as important or more important than what is happening out there. Don't get me wrong. Jesus was focused on another part of the world. He was called to another part of the world. He was called to a big goal. He was sent for it. And yet he was not going to miss out. Not going to miss out on people crying out for help right here. He wasn't going to not stop to rest and to pray. He wasn't going to miss out on opportunities to just sit with his 12 to 24 people, to invest in them. We talked about it last week. Think about this. He spent the most of his ministry, practically all of it, investing in 12 to 24 people. If that's how the Savior of the world does it, why are we trying to do it so differently? I see a couple of comments. I'm going to pause to see what they say. Yeah, thanks for that, Doug. Like I said, don't get me wrong, man, the cross and resurrection they're the climax of everything in Jesus' life. But what Jesus did on his journey there has quite a bit in it. Here's what I'm saying. Let Jesus teach you focus. Let Jesus call you to do things around you, right in front of you, and maybe also have one or two things that you focus on globally. Let Jesus teach you focus. Let Jesus lead you into things you should be doing, not your anxiety, your shame, or your fear. You do not have to run around. Ross, you don't have to run around saying, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Am I enough? Am I fixing enough things? Am I saving enough things? Am I going to make it to the pedestal with the trophies and people singing, he's a jolly good fellow? You're released from that. That is one thing that Jesus nailed up to the cross. Let it die. Let it die today. Let it die tomorrow. And the days after that. I want to share with you a practical example that somebody was going to share live in person today. It may take me a minute to get to it as I get my computer fired up. And I want to mention this person by name to remind you that we do have a community here. You may not know this person, but hey, you'll get to know her at some point. She's part of our neighborhood of friends at Heaven Earth Church. That's the vision. That is the big vision for us. We want to be a neighborhood of friends, a neighborhood of individuals, families, and small groups that work together with Jesus to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. Well, listen to this story from Julie Adams. As a great example of moving from the out there to the right here. This was after week 1 of our series, The Art of Making a Difference, where we talked about we can make a difference without the love of God, but we're made to make a difference with the love of God. And we drew the triangle, the great triangle of difference making. Love of God at the top, love of neighbor down here, love of self down here. When we're out of balance, we can be too extremely focused on one. And you'd say, can I be too extremely focused on love of God? My response to that is if you're extremely focused on love of God, you will be proportionately focused on loving yourself and loving your neighbor. We can be lost in people-pleasing, codependency, fixing others, love of neighbor, and totally neglecting ourselves. We can be totally self-focused in a way that we forget our neighbor. Listen to what Julie says. She said, since spring, when the current civil rest boiled over, I was in turmoil. Our son Jess wrote a letter telling about the times he had run-ins. Simply because he's black. Things we never knew about. I felt the huge need to do something, but had no clue of what. Apparently arguing on Facebook doesn't work. We've all been lost in that wilderness of out there, haven't we? In the land of the Facebook prophets. It's a good place, but a tough place. Those are my words, not Julie's. She said it's been burdening me a lot. This is back to Julie. Listen for the movement too, right here. About a year ago, I applied for the Leadership Johnson County class at Franklin College, not expecting to get chosen, but I did. So in September, that class started with the 2-day retreat. The big task of the class is to do a project to benefit the county in some way. Groups were put together by the way we answered our questionnaire last year. You don't know what your group has in common until you start deeper conversations and land on the common passion. Our group's common passion is diversity education. It was a huge moment of aha rejoicing. We can work together with the skills and stories we each bring to the table. I suggested videos for the high schools, and a teammate announced he has a side business as a videographer. It's coming together, and it's so obvious that God was planning this all along. Before we even knew there was a problem, God had a plan for us to be of use. He gave us life experience that could be of service to others. It's amazing how God makes way where we can't see it all. She says it's been such a blessing to find heaven, earth, and to learn from us, from each other. I hope that helps. And thank you, Julie, for sharing that. I told Julie that story ain't about her, but it is. Nothing's about you. But it is. The movement from out there focus to in here. I'll give you another example. Heaven Earth Church is a church plant of the United Methodist Church. I'm a United Methodist pastor. We are a globally connected church. We have churches all over the world. We have initiatives that are all over the world, such as Africa University and the Africa University Fund. When you give to Heaven Earth Church, 10% of that we give right back to state and global initiatives of the United Methodist Church. So that's a way that you're focusing on something right here, your local church, and we are investing it in state and local initiatives. Now, of course, we have our local impact fund. When anything goes to that, 100% of it goes right back to the local community. But we take an additional 5% of our operating budget, our day-to-day operations, things that keep the lights on and pay for resources, and honestly, it pays my income. We take 5% of that budget and give that also to the local community. We are trying to have the same focus of being, yes, not neglecting things happening in the globe, but also saying, what is happening in our neck of the woods? Right here, right now. The kingdom of heaven is near, friends. The Savior of the world, Jesus, has made it so. Believe in Him. Follow Him and let Him teach you focus on the things right here and right now. Let your egos, your desire of your egos go. Let him take those daily. It'll probably be a daily discipline. And don't believe the lies of the shame that says that the past is who you are and that out there back then is what makes you you. Right here, right now. You're forgiven, you're healed, you're called to focus right here. There's a quote, I'll leave you with this, from a series of videos called Letters to Exiles for the Life of the World. It says, "Can we do the humble work of sowing and tilling so that another can come along and reap?" And now, my commentary on that, can we do something right here and right now that may not come to fruition in our time so that somebody else can bring it to fruition?